For most people, roller derby is a safe, inclusive space that allows them to be themselves, try new things, and be a part of a sport they love. But in 2011, the WFTDA announced a gender policy that is discriminatory against non-cisgender skaters. This is a big problem for several reasons, so if you're unfamiliar with the policy or don't understand why it's a problem, let's talk about the WFTDA gender policy. In a nutshell, it states that any skater chartered in a WFTDA sanctioned game must both live as a woman and have sex hormones within the medically acceptable range for a female. Anyone can call into question someone's gender, which then requires the individual in question to provide a doctor's note stating that their hormones are within this medically acceptable range. Unfortunately, this policy and many others like it are built on the misconception that hormones directly affect skater safety and performance. On the website, the WFTDA states, "This policy creates a framework in which this participation may occur in a safe and healthy manner that is fair to all competitors." Essentially, this explains that this policy is based on the idea that if someone has too much testosterone or not enough estrogen, they are unsafe to play with, and it would be unfair to all competitors to let that individual skate at a WFTDA sanctioned level. This is an unfounded fear, as there have been studies that have proved there's no evidence that high testosterone levels directly affect performance in women's sports. But the WFTDA policy equates gender and hormones and requires trans skaters to have hormones within this medically acceptable range. The thing is, there is no medically acceptable range. The WFTDA does not provide a range, and I cannot find one source stating that there was an official overarching standard of hormones to determine if someone is female in the medical world. The WFTDA's requirement relies on completely arbitrary evaluations, as the medically acceptable range is determined by each individual's healthcare provider. This means that there will be inconsistent results, which leads to disparity in those cleared to skate. As levels of these hormones vary from person to person, and there's no medical standard by which to compare, this policy kind of invalidates itself. But it isn't just the baseless science behind this poorly written policy that should alarm you, it's the fact that it is discriminatory against trans skaters. On their website, the WFTDA states that the purpose of this gender policy is to ensure that athletes are able to compete on a level playing field in a safe, competitive, and friendly environment free of discrimination. While it is understandable the WFTDA wants these things, creating a policy that requires only trans skaters to undergo the violation of privacy and potential humiliation of having their gender called into question, as well as the lengthy and expensive process of hormone testing, is not free of discrimination. That is literally discrimination. You cannot demand that non-cisgender skaters should expect to comply with this narrow definition of female when cisgender women are so vastly different in terms of hormones, gender identity, and sexual orientation, and aren't also expected to comply with these standards. If you agree that this policy is discriminatory, please talk to your WFTDA rep about advocating for better policy. You can help make WFTDA Derby a safe place for trans skaters, and I hope you choose to be a part of this change. I have included links to my sources, resources on learning more about gender, and other articles on this subject in the description box below. I would also like to give a huge shout out to my friend and teammate Joe Danger for all of their help with this video. Their insight and information was completely invaluable. I could not have done this without them. Alright, so that's it for me. If you have any thoughts on the WFTDA gender policy, please leave a comment below or find me on Twitter at NoxTalks. I would love to hear from you.